mean, I really was not. I left here and I was in the bed all weekend, had a fever and everything else, and it then finally broke and, all that. And I feel so much better. However, I'm still having a little trouble with, my breathing every now and then. I didn't have anything, severe or anything of that nature. It's just every now and then I get a little congested. And in particular, when I start doing a little bit more talking, my nose gets a little bit stuffed up, and a little congested. I don't know if y'all could really hear it during that last break, but I struggled to make it through that last little break, just telling y'all about all of that. But I trust and believe God. I believe God. He's gonna see me through this, and so I want to, I want to go through. I want us to look at something. All right, we're gonna be in First Peter. We're gonna be in First Peter, and we're gonna be in First Peter chapter 5. And when you get to chapter 5, there is a lot for me to deal with, for me to dissect, and for me to even break down in there. In particular, let me just say within the first 5 verses, there is so much to be dealt with, so much to talk about in those first 5 verses. Like no lie, no lie. Um, and we're probably maybe gonna get there. But let me just tell you, we're gonna probably not start with verse number 5 right now. And the reason being, or we're not. Excuse me. Let me say this. We're probably not gonna start with verse number 1. We're gonna start with verse number 6. All right. And so what we'll do is like I said, we'll start with verse number 6, and then we'll come back and we'll deal with verses 1 through 5 later on this week. But I want us to go to verse number 6, and really, if I could, I would like to borrow from 5b. All right, 5b is what I'm gonna call this. First Peter chapter 5, part B of verse 5 says this: God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God, all right, resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Then verse number 6 says, therefore, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Now, we just left out of, on last week, we left out of Colossians chapter 3, and we were looking at verses 12 through, I want to say 17. And as we were talking about that, I shared with you all that one of the things, or three of the things, that keep us from seeing and achieving and realizing even the vision that God has for us is that we our perspective. All right, and I'm gonna come back and deal with that. Our unforgiveness and our attitude. Right, your perspective, your unforgiveness, and your attitude. And when you look at First Peter chapter 5, and like I said, I'm using part B of verse 5 as well. It says again that God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, verse 6, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. Friends, I want to take a moment to encourage you on today. And I may not be as lengthy as I've been in other days, but I want to take a moment to encourage you on today as we get ready to close out this year. I shared with you that this year is the year of vision, right? 2023 has been the year of vision. I said that at the beginning of the year. I've been preaching messages about vision or sharing messages, teaching about vision and different things and aspects all this year, right? All this year. And I shared with you that 2024, the Lord showed me, is the year of completion. It's the year He's going to bring some things to a point of finality, to a point of completion in your life. Some things you've been praying about, things you've been fasting about, things you've been crying about, things He's going to bring those things to a point of completion. It's going to happen for you, in other words. He's going to do it for you in 2024. In 2024 I'm telling you, it is a season, it is a year of open doors where doors and things that have been shut in your face are going to be opened for you, and you're going to walk through those doors, and you're going to see victory, and you're going to see turnaround, and you're going to see blessings, and you're going to see family members getting saved, and you're going to see all these things happening, right? That's in 2024. But in order for us to get there, in order for us to get to that point, there's a couple of things that we need to deal with. All right. And we dealt with a lot of it on last week. But the Lord led me to First Peter 5 for somebody on today. Because see, you have been walking around with your pride. Yeah. You've been walking around with your pride. You've been, trying to get it done in your own strength. You've been trying to do this thing on your own instead of relying on and trusting in God. And when He sends people your way, you've been rejecting them. You've been turning them away. And you've been saying, no, I don't want nobody to get no glory for this. I don't want nobody to say that they did such and such for me. In my book, Dreaming Big Dreams While Living in a Small World, in that book, I I write about a story. There's a story that I write about, and in this story, there is a man, right? He was walking, and he ended up falling. Well, he was walking, and then it got a little bit of foggy, a little bit cloudy, and he couldn't really see his way as much. He was on this little nature trail, and so it just so happened that he ended up, he was walking on the edge of this little cliff, this little hang-off area, and like I said, the storm or the fog came in, and he couldn't see, and he ended up, you know, kind of slipping, but he grabbed the edge real quick just before he was about to plummet all the way down. He grabbed the edge, and he as he was holding on, the Lord sent some people. He was praying and crying out, and he was calling, Lord, save me, Lord, send somebody, and so people came. There was one guy. He came, and when he came, he said, can you help me? And the guy, the fog was still there. The guy said, listen, I can't see where you are right now, but just let go. And the man said, look, if you're not going to be serious and help me, then I need you to go on. This is not a time to joke or to play. This is a life or death situation. So just get out of here, right? And so the guy goes on, and then another person comes on, and again they also are walking in the fog, and the guy's like, hey, can you help me? Can you help me? And the guy's like, I can't really see my way to you, but why don't you just let go? He was like, look, man, you're the second. If you're not gonna help me, then and take this seriously, then get out of here and find me somebody who can really help. So again, another person comes, and he hears this person again. He can't see any of these people 'cause there's a fog in the way, and they say, just let go. He was like, man, look, I'm trying to hold on here. I'm trying to make it. But if you can't throw me a rope, if you can't, crawl or try to find where, and you're not going to take this seriously, then just get out of here. Well, as course of nature would have it, eventually his hands got weak and his strength began to fail him in his hands, and he eventually had to let go. And when he let go, he realized that the ground was just 3 feet below him. And all this whole time while he was holding on, all he had to do was just let go. But his pride, right? Because people weren't telling him what he wanted to hear. Because people weren't doing things the way he thought they ought to do them. He allowed his pride to keep him stuck, holding on to something that he thought he needed to hold on to that edge because he thought he had run out of road. But what he didn't realize is that he was on a winding path and that when he fell off up there, all he had to do was let go and the path was just below him because, see, it winds around the side of that little mountain or hill that he was on, right? So what am I saying to some of you? Some of us have been holding on and trying to do things in our own strength, trying to do things our own way, trying and try and just everybody who's come by, they say, "Oh man, why don't you just do it this way? Why don't you just, you know?" And we've been like, "Look, if you're not gonna get out of here," no, no, no. And then also saying, "I don't want nobody to get no credit," like I said earlier, for what God's gonna do in my life. Not realizing and recognizing that God sent those people to help you in the midst of. Friends, if we're going to see the visions that God has shown us, if we're going to see the completion of those things, we've got to let go of pride. These messages that I've been preaching these last few weeks, although they are about vision, they're also they're also preparing us for the next year. And like I said, next year is the year of completion where you're going to see some of these things that God's been showing you, that God's been like you're going to see these things start to come to pass. But it starts with you first recognizing, okay, I've got to change my attitude. It comes with you recognizing I've got to learn how to forgive some people. The completion of the vision, right? The completion of the things that God has been showing you and putting in your heart, all that, all this year, all that stuff, that hard work that you went through. The completion of all that comes when you change your perspective. And now here's that next part. When you let go of your pride. Let go of your pride and stop saying, okay, look, I don't want nobody helping me. I don't need nobody because all they gonna do is slow me down. All they gonna do is, no, no, no. That's not what that's not what God is trying to do. God is trying to send some people your way. You know, I I was reading the story the other day of Joseph. And Joseph, God gave Joseph vision, God gave Joseph a dream. And when he gave Joseph that vision and that dream, Joseph went and shared it with his brothers, and his brothers then tried to assassinate and to kill him in his dream. And you remember because what was it? I think it was Reuben. One of them said, the oldest I think it was, said, "Hey, let us kill him, then let's see what becomes of his dream." Right? And so in the midst of all of that happening, in the midst of all that going on, in the midst of all that, when we get to, I think it is about chapter, I think it's 42, 45, 47, one of those. It's somewhere in Genesis 40 something or another. You know, Joseph is now in the palace. He's put his brothers through the ringer, and he reveals himself to them and he tells them, "Look, y'all meant this thing for evil, but God set it up for not just my good, but even for your good. Like, I know you, I know. Y'all thought y'all was doing yourselves a favor. Y'all thought y'all was hurting me, but God was allowing you to do what you did to set me up for this place that I'm in so that I could deliver our family." And so many of you, you've been so hurt by the stuff that folks have done to you that you didn't let your pride get in the way and you say, "You know what? I ain't helping another person I ain't praying for another person. I'm not encouraging another person. I'm not doing nothing for another person because every time I try, every time I do, they turn on me. Every time they turn on me. But I dare you to let go of that pride. I dare you to forgive. I dare you to adjust your perspective. I dare you to get your attitude in alignment and realize, God, what are you working for my good? God, what is it that you're working so that I can be a deliverer for somebody else who's gonna need it in a time of famine, who's gonna need me and need your word and need, like who are you, Lord, why am I going through this now? Who are you trying to bless later on? God, just use me as see, and I think this is see again. I'm trying to help us with our perspective, our attitude, our unforgiveness, and our pride. And part of the problem is we've been crying out and saying, "Lord, use me as you see fit. Lord, have your way." And when He starts having His way, not that He causes afflictions to come upon you, not that He causes bad things to happen in your life, but when He allows those things to happen for your perfecting, then we get all bent out of shape. The thing that I love is, see, we often, and I've done it, and I'll probably do it again. We often beat up on the disciples. And we say, "Oh man, they panicking while Jesus is in the boat sleeping." We panic. I mean, not panic. We beat up on the disciples because we see all these times when they just like were just falling out, tripping, failing, while Jesus was with them. But can I tell you that all of that was building up to the point to where when Peter and Paul and others would when Paul, well, Peter, let's deal with Peter because Peter was actually there with you. Like Peter would be able to say, "Hey, silver and gold have I none. Rise and take that." You know what I'm saying? Like rise up and walk. Like it was for these things that the disciples went through so that when Jesus left, they could continue on the ministry. So, yeah, they failed a little bit while Jesus was there. Which one of us hasn't? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And let me just tell you, that does not mean just since you've been since before you were saved. That means even since you were saved, you're still coming short. But it's all building up for your perfecting. That's why I love what this verse in verse number 6. It says, "Therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that He may exalt you in due time." About 3 years ago now, I'm almost certain it was about 3 years ago now. I preached a series here on this radio show called "Promise, Process, Purpose." And y'all know I kept flipping that thing around. Those of y'all who maybe remember, I kept flipping it. I will say, process, or no, promise, process, like I kept flipping it around. Purpose, profit. I just flipped around. But when God gives you that promise, you've got to go through process before you can walk in purpose. And essentially, when you look at First Peter chapter 5, verse 6, what he's saying is you've got to humble yourself when you go through these things because you've got the promise. You've got to go through process, and I'm going to reveal purpose in the midst of it. That's why I hold on to, and I'm so grateful that my mom made me as a young man read James. And she said, "Well, hey, your name is in the Bible. It's your name. You need to read it." And I read it, and I'm so grateful she did because later on in life, I began to understand. I began to understand what it meant when James said in James chapter 1, "Brethren, sisters, brothers, friends." All right, I'm going to switch it up a little bit for you so that it can be relatable to all, palatable to all. Friends, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. What is he saying there? He's saying, listen, you need to be happy when you go through these different things. Be happy when you go through hardships and trials and tribulations and heartaches and heartbreaks. When folks turn their back on you, when folks clown you, when folks start, he said, count it all joy. Be happy about it. How the song go? Don't worry, be happy, right? That's what he's saying. Knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. What's he saying right there? He's saying it's a process to this. It's a process to this. It's building some things in you. It's establishing some things in you. So when you start to go through these things, don't get bent out of shape. Don't get just start worshiping. Start thanking God. Start giving God glory. Lord, the more you put me, Rabbi Shata, Ikirishi. Glory to God. I feel this thing in my spirit today. I was trying to hold that in. But the more he puts me through, the more hell I go through, the more trauma I go through, the more he is perfecting me, the more he is establishing me. I shared with you all the last week, one of my favorite shows is Forged in Fire. And I shared with y'all the part of the process where they put the thing into the steel into the forge. I shared with you how they beat the steel, how they didn't have to remove, they quench it. Then after they quench it, they remove the forge scale. Then they temper it. Then after they temper it, what I didn't tell you that they do on that show is they begin to test it. James says this, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience, but let patience have its perfect work, that you may be entire and perfect, lacking nothing. So when they start testing it, they'll do a stab test, a chop test, a sharpness test, right? And they want to see, can your knife, can your blade, can your sword, whatever it is that they had you make, that you decided to make, can it withstand hardship? Can it withstand trials and tribulations? And then afterwards, they say, okay, we got our two winners here. Now we need y'all to go home and we want y'all to do it again. But this time it's going to be a specific test, right? This time we want you to make a specific weapon, right? This time we want you to make a specific blade. Then they make those blades, and those men, they go through their trials and their tribulations in their 4 days, and they make those blades and those things all over again, and then they bring them back. They put them through some tests, and then afterwards they declare a winner. What First Peter chapter 6 is telling, chapter 5 is telling us, verse 6, is that if you can humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, allowing him to test you, to temper you, to put you through trials and tribulations. What James says is that if you can allow patience to have its perfect work in you, then you'll come out perfect and entire, lacking nothing. At the end of Forged in Fire, after they've tested both blades, and they put them through all the tests, and they looked at them and saw how they came through those tests, they declare a winner. And that winner gets $10,000, right? And he says, if you can, and this is what God is saying in the spiritual realm, that if you can humble yourself under the mighty hand of God, then he will exalt you in due time. Now, somebody said, well, that sounds good, but how do I make it through that? The last part of this says, this is verse number 7, and I'm going to pick up with this tomorrow. Casting all your care upon him, for he cares for you. That's how you make it through these trials and tribulations. That's how you make it through hard times and situations. You just go, you take it to him and say, Lord, I don't know what you're doing, but I know you up to something, and I trust you. I trust you. So have your way. Have your way, Holy Spirit. Have your way. And you just cast it all upon him because he cares for you. He cares for you. Glory to God. Glory to God. Friends, I'm going to close out with this song. Matter of fact, I'm going to play this for you right now. I feel this one in my spirit. It's by Bishop Paul S. Morton. And let's see if I can find this one real quick. But I really want to encourage you. I don't, I know you've been going through, and some of you say, "Hey, I'm tired of going through." Some say, "Hey, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." But I dare you to just trust God. All right. I'm gonna play this little medley right here, by Bishop Paul S. Morton. Keep it locked. You're tuned in to I Am Encouraged Radio here on 93.5 K